Hello again. I'm a little bit suboptimal today because we were on the podcast last night and, as per usual, several beverages were consumed. But what better way to blow off the cobwebs than getting a brew on? So that's what I'm doing, and this is going to be a grain to glass video with a little bit of a difference because this is all about testing out a new hop, and hopefully this will be the start of a kind of series of videos that I'm going to do where I am basically trying out new hops and seeing what they taste like, but also getting some views from other people on what sort of flavour profile and characteristics you get from the hops are going to be. So today we're starting off with Nectaron. So let's get into it and see what this hop's all about. Okay, so I have previously done some hop tester videos in the earlier days of this channel, but I wanted to revisit the concept and basically do it a slightly different way. So I'm going to use a set kind of base recipe for these beers and essentially use 100 grams of whatever hop it is. It's not going to be a totally single hopped beer because what I will do is basically set the IBUs so that they're basically going to be the same for each brew. And I'll do that just by adjusting a small 60-minute addition of Columbus hops as my bittering hop. And then the 100 grams of the new hop, in this case the Nectaron, is going to be split up for late additions and dry hop, following the schedule which I've got here, which is basically 15 grams at 10 minutes, 15 grams at 5 minutes, 30 grams for a 20-minute hop stand at or whirlpool at 80 degrees C, and then 40 grams into the dry hop. So it's not going to be a massively hopped beer, but enough to sort of give you a good idea in terms of a kind of typical, I guess, pale ale or maybe golden ale kind of hopping schedule, what the hop will bring to the party. The grist is going to be the same for each beer as well, and I'm keeping that pretty simple too. Now, a lot of people would say use a smash beer in order to try out hops, and that is a really good way to get an idea of what hops are about. But because I'm going to do several of these beers, what I want to do is use a base recipe that's closer to something that I would typically brew in terms of like a golden ale or a pale ale, which is not, going to be a single malt beer usually. So I want to try it out in the sort of with a sort of malt platform that is going to be more typical of what I would brew anyway. So maybe that will give me a better idea of how it might perform in those sorts of beers, which tend to be the ones that I brew most of anyway, I would say. So speaking of which, the grist is basically 3.5 kilos of Pilsner malt or lager malt. I was going to use a pale ale malt, but I thought lager malt is just going to give you a slightly cleaner, again, base to sort of build from in terms of the flavour. A little bit of Munich, so we've got 300 grams of that, and then 200 grams of caramel. So just a little bit of crystal malt in there, basically to add a touch of sweetness, and the Munich there just to give you a little bit more of that kind of bready malt sort of flavour, but without being too full on and getting in the way of the hops, which is what we really want to be looking at primarily. But like I said, there's just enough there to sort of bring it in line with a typical kind of golden ale or pale ale grist that I would use in a lot of my recipes anyway. We should be looking at about 4.9% on the finished beer. I'm going to be fermenting out of US-05, again, just a sort of standard pale ale yeast that I will be able to use for each beer without any problems. 38 IBUs, so that's a Bugu ratio of about 0.8, which again is pretty much the kind of sweet spot that I would aim for with a golden ale or pale ale. Anyway, OG of 1046 predicted, final gravity 10009. And just under 9 EVC in terms of colour. So it's going to be a nice light golden beer and hopefully a good showcase for these hops. So, Nectaron. These are a new hop that's out of New Zealand. I haven't really seen these in any, or I haven't been able to try these in any commercial beers yet. So this really is a new kind of hop to me. I'm just going to sort of open these up and give you kind of my first impressions of it straight out of the packet, see what sort of aroma we get from these. Wow, they are pungent, like very, very pungent in the bag. my initial impression, first of all, is they remind me a bit of Rawaka hops, which are a really pungent New Zealand hop as well. And there's definitely a lot of kind of bright, zesty citrus aroma on there. Lime, it's a New Zealand hop, and always seem to come back to lime as being one of the underlying sort of flavours that you get, but this is a really, really bright aroma of lime. The hops themselves, probably won't be able to see that on the camera, but they're nice, light sort of green. Sometimes with the hop pellets you see, if they're really kind of dry and hard, they maybe don't look quite as nice or in as good a condition as some others, but these have got that very fresh, kind of light, leafy green appearance to them, and a little bit squishy as well, which I think often with the hops that are carrying a lot of oils, the pellets tend to be a little bit more squishy, which again is usually a pretty good sign that there's going to be a lot of aroma and flavour coming off of these. But yeah, I mean, as far as first impressions go, we're looking pretty good. Right, anyway, so I've talked about the recipe. We've done a little look at the hops out of the packet. Let's get on to the brewing, and then we'll do some tasting afterwards. Now, I'm going to taste the beer myself, but I'm also going to be sending this beer out to some of my podcasting compadres, and hopefully we'll be able to get a little bit of footage on the end here with those guys tasting it, but they're going to be doing it blind, so I'm not going to tell them what the hop is when they get the beer, so that should hopefully give us some interesting feedback on these hops and this beer in particular. Cool, right, let's get brewing. And there we have it. So that's the Nectaron Hop Tester, Pale or Golden Ale, whatever you want to call it. This has been in the keg for a couple of weeks now, and as you can see, it is absolutely crystal clear. So it's looking very nice in the glass. US-05 can take a little while to flocculate, but it gets there eventually, given a bit of time and cold, as long as it's not got a lot of dry hops in it. But I mean, that's pretty much the same for any yeast. And yeah, in this case, it's ended up with a really nice, attractive, light straw coloured pale ale, lovely sort of moussey cap on the top, and yeah, nice streaming carbonation coming up the glass. But we're not really interested in the appearance, we want to know about the hops on this one. So let's talk about the aroma a little bit on here. Just before I do go into that, the numbers and everything pretty much came out as per the recipe. I think it was marginally higher ABV because of a couple of points, maybe higher OG than targeted, but otherwise it was pretty much where it was supposed to be. Brew day all went pretty smoothly. So yeah, back to the beer. On the aroma, considering it was only a 40-gram dry hop, it's got a really decent hoppy aroma to it. It's quite fragrant, and it's got a very distinct aroma to it as well. Quite a few different elements there to try and pick out. There's definitely a sort of citrus zest, kind of bright citrus zesty kind of thing going there. I think I am definitely picking up on that kind of lime zest again. There's some sort of melony, tropical fruit stuff going on. There's also just a sort of dankness to it as well. So, but not in the maybe the piney kind of American hop sort of sense, but a bit of a kind of resiny, herbal, almost lemongrass type thing. Don't know if that makes any sense, but maybe a hint of that sort of kind of dank weeds type smell, but again not quite as sweaty as some other hops, but it's got its own particular brand of sweatiness. I'm doing a terrible job here of describing the aromas that I'm getting off of this, but it's quite complex, so it's kind of difficult to sort of pick out one thing and say, oh, it smells like, you know, peaches or whatever, but it smells good, I'll say that for it. Anyway, taste time. First of all, it's really nice. So just as a general, you know, first impression, the flavour on it is beautiful from the hops. Again, there's quite a bright, zesty sort of taste to it, citrus zest. A lot of American hops you'll talk about kind of grapefruity, citrus flavours and things like that. This is the kind of New Zealand hop thing where it's a slightly different sort of citrus profile, where it's more, I guess, of a kind of like a bright sort of fresh zest kind of flavour, as opposed to maybe more of the kind of juicy notes perhaps. There's perhaps a little bit of grapiness on there as well. There's maybe a little bit of the sort of Nelson kind of slightly tart, grapey, maybe gooseberry thing going on here as well. Maybe some little bit of a sort of stone fruit thing in the background, but it's quite sort of, the beer itself is quite dry and light sort of in flavour, so I think that's kind of making the hop flavour lean a bit more towards the sort of zesty, bright kind of light flavours, as opposed to maybe being a bit more juicy, although it does seem to me like there is the potential there for this to be a really juicy sort of hop as well. And the beer tastes quite juicy, but not in the kind of like Nipah sort of sense. But if you put this hop into a Nipah, maybe it would give you more of that sort of sweet, juicy kind of flavour. On this one, it's a little bit more of a bright, sort of almost tart kind of citrus juice thing going on, maybe, to me, I don't know. So yeah, I'm getting a little bit of that kind of grapey, sort of tart gooseberry thing, citrusy lime zest and juice. There's maybe a little bit of a sort of sweeter stone fruit thing there as well, but that's a little bit more in the background. I want to say maybe lychee, maybe a bit of lychee. I think on the description they talk about passion fruit, maybe, but I don't know. I think passion fruit is one of those ones that they tend to stick on anything that references tropical fruit flavour, and they go passion fruit. It wouldn't be the first thing I'd pick out here, but I could certainly see how some people might interpret it as that sort of flavour. You can see by how quickly this is going down that it's really tasty. It's definitely got a unique kind of New Zealand hop flavour profile to it. Again, it does remind me a bit of like Rwaka. There's some elements of like Nelson in there for me as well. It's probably, yeah, if I was going to sort of compare it to anything, I'd probably say a sort of a combination between maybe those type of hops and a little bit of something like a Citra or something like that as well. But it's definitely got its own distinct character and a really, really nice hop. It works great in a beer like this, so a light kind of pale ale or golden ale would be really good. I think it would be brilliant in hoppy lagers. I mean, this is pretty much a lager grist. It's lager malt, bit of Munich and some caramel. So this is pretty close to a lager just fermented with a USO5. If you put a lager yeast in this recipe as it is, you'd end up with a really nice sort of dry hopped lager. So that would be good. Your kind of IPLs and things like that. And again, I think if you put it into a sort of more sweeter, kind of full-bodied recipe like a Nipa or something like that, you probably get more of the kind of juicy fruit flavors coming out of this. So I see this working in loads of stuff, but yeah, the obvious ones, obviously pale, APAs, golden ales, IPAs, Nipas and the like. Seems like it would do a great job in all of those to me. And definitely good enough to stand up on its own. I'm not really sure that you would need to mix this with many other hops, if any at all. I think it could definitely stand up on its own as well. So yeah, now the only problem with this hop is that it's in very limited supply in the UK at the moment. I bought this from the malt miller and it did cost the best part of £10 for 100 grams, which is a lot of money. It was definitely worth paying that in order to try it out, especially when I've tasted it now and it's fantastic. Would I pay that much as a matter of course for 100 grams of hops? Not generally. I mean, I tend to buy my hops in sort of slightly, bigger quantities to save a bit of money anyway these days. And this hop isn't really that widely available yet to be sold in bulk quantities. So that's not really an option. And it seems to be out of stock everywhere at the moment anyway. But hopefully the next time the kind of New Zealand harvest comes in, we'll maybe see it available in a few different places and in slightly bigger quantities. But yeah, keep an eye out on sort of Malt Miller. I think there's maybe one other place that I saw it in the UK that was on offer, the home brew shop, I think, perhaps. So yeah, hopefully we'll see more of this hop in future, and if it becomes more available, the price will come down a little bit. I'm a bit of a tight ass, so I wouldn't regularly be paying £10 for 100 grams of hops, but in this case, I think it's definitely worth it to at least give it a try. So yeah, recommended by me. Now, let's get over to the chaps at the Hop Edition and see what they think about it. I've drunk this beer with a little bit of a, sort of preconceived idea of what it's going to be like, because I know where it's from. I've read the descriptions of it. I've, kind of smelt the hops before they've gone into the beer and all this kind of stuff. Let's see what my colleagues over at the Hop Edition think of it when they're trying it blind, effectively, because I've sent it to them without any information about what hop is in it, and they won't find out until after they've actually tried the beer. So yeah, we'll cut to the Hop Edition footage now. Why don't you guys all have a little sniff and maybe a taster, and then just try and think of what comes into your head first in terms of aroma and flavour and see.
Floral. It's a little bit floral, I think. But
I'm getting fruitiness off of it. A definite fruitiness on the note. As soon as I opened the bottle, I got a lot of fruitiness. Mm-hmm. It really it jangled my olfactory bells. It was really rather nice.
My guess, it's a UK hop that's one of the new, and it's fruity, but it's not like punch in your face fruitiness. It's just like it's a nice subtle fruitiness that goes through.
I'll be honest, I didn't know Magnum could taste this good late in a boil. No, it's I'm getting like a creamy note.
Yeah.
Almost like kind of like Sabro gives you that creamy note,
right,
but with more fruit compared to Sabro, because Sabro is very earthy, nutty, kind of almost coconut. Yeah, you all know what
coconut
like.
And quite herbal, isn't it?
That kind of note. But with this, I'm getting borderline pina colada kind of creaminess with a little bit of fruit.
Yeah, I think I'm getting a bit of a almost red berry. I'm getting a licorice thing.
I can see where you pick. I can see where you're saying licorice. I can smell.
Yeah, it's probably
that kind
more.
of thing.
It's probably more on the aroma than it is on the flavour.
Weirdly, you know when you get a super ripe, like Kanzo pear. You probably never had a Kanzo. Okay, really, really super sweet Japanese pears, Kanzo pears. They're lovely. They're really, really nice. Damn flies. I'm getting almost that sweetness with kind of a hint of almost pear, but not quite pear.
Oh, yeah.
You see what I mean?
That's it. That is it, Chris. It's that kind of pear thing that just in the nose.
It's almost like what's that pear tart? Like a French.
A tart tatin.
Yes. It's like the sweetness of the malt is just like merging nicely with that like pear note.
We're not
It's
getting any
almost
pastry though.
No.
No, but like almost that kind of like slightly caramelized thing that you get.
I'd fucking smash a few pints of this, I'll be honest. It's
Very
a lovely
cool,
base,
yeah.
Tricky. It's a really nice base. You're going to have to tell us what this hop is.
Okay, well, what do you all think that it's UK? Are you all,
I think so.
I'm not entirely convinced.
I think it is.
I'm getting, and me and Tricky have talked about this a lot. You know the lime.
Oh, you're getting the New Zealand thing.
I don't know whether it's pear or whether it could be construed as lime, but it's tasting like pear because of the malt bill, because of that caramel.
Yeah.
If the caramel's sweetening off that lime flavour, it may well give you Kanzo pear. Just saying.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced it's UK, but at the same time, I'm not convinced it's New Zealand either.
Okay, so somewhere in between UK and New Zealand.
I mean, Peru. It's a Peruvian hop.
Nothing like sitting on the fence. I think
like
it's
to feel that punched up my ass.
somewhere between the North and South Pole.
It's from Poland. It's Polish.
So it's not a UK hop. It is a New Zealand hop.
Of course it was.
Well done, Chris.
Cheers, mate.
It is, in fact, Nectaron.
Fucking hell!
Okay.
Yes!
So yeah, well done on
Interesting.
picking out that sort of limey thing, Chris, because that was definitely something that I got when I was tasting.
Faint.
Like I said,
is.
it is interesting because I had obviously that information in my head when I first tried it, and I'm like, oh yeah, it tastes of lime and like New Zealand tropical sort of flavors and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But you guys, without that kind of, do you know what I mean, like preconceived bias,
It's a line there.
have got a lot of different notes off of that, which is really interesting.
We got there in the end. Well, I did.
Yeah, Chris sort of sussed it out, or he was halfway there anyway.
Well, now you say it, like when you give it a good whiff,
yeah, you get.
You're actually getting. Well, I'm actually getting some nectarine.
Peppery. It's like peppery lime.
That's really nice. And the weird thing is, with the nectarine or the Nectaron, the supposed tropical stone fruit kind of thing, you do get an element of creaminess from a nectarine when you eat it. You do, because of the flesh.
Yeah.
It gives you that element. That's actually a really, really, really this is a really well-named hop. They've clearly thought about this a lot. I love that. That's really nice. I'm going to order half kilo of Nectaron. You guys talk.
You might struggle with that, but as you've got friends in New Zealand, Chris, I think you might be the only one who can actually probably get hold of it.
I'm sort of picking out some similarities with my New Zealand Pilsner that I've got on tap at the moment.
Yeah.
Oh, God,
I think if I actually brewed this with a lager yeast, it would be a cracking, like, hoppy lager.
Anyway, that was brilliant, and it appears to have gone down well with the current audience on YouTube. 10 quid for 100 grams and out of stock at the malt miller. I've just bobbed an email to my cuz.
So hopefully you enjoyed that review of Nectaron hops and enjoyed the perspective of the other guys over on the Hop Edition. So it's always interesting to get that perspective. Quite interesting to see the different sort of flavors where things were similar and where they weren't in terms of what people picked out and their sort of impressions of the hops when they've not had that sort of preconceived ideas in their mind about what it's going to be like. If you enjoyed that, let us know in the comments, because like I said, I am planning on doing a few more of these videos with different hops. I've got a few in the freezer already lined up for more of these experiments with the same recipe. If there's any particular hops that you'd like us to try out using this method, then also stick that in the comments and let me know. But yeah, pretty happy with this as a first one. So Nectaron hops get the thumbs up from me. Hopefully if they are available anytime soon again, you'll be able to go out and get some and try them out yourselves. Cheers.
I'm the dude. So that's what you call me, you know? That or his dudeness or duder or, you know, El Duderino if you're not into the whole brevity thing.